Single dad with $0 cancels daughter's dream cake, but an inspiring millionaire changes everything. Jack stood in the small, dimly lit garage, hands trembling as he gripped the wrench. The familiar smell of motor oil and gasoline hung heavy in the air, but today the scent felt suffocating. He felt a wave of despair wash over him. Lily, his bright-eyed 10-year-old daughter, had excitedly shared her vision for a spectacular birthday cake. Layers of rainbow colors, unicorns dancing among a sprinkle of edible glitter. It was a dream cake, but in the harsh light of reality, the thought made him cringe. With bills piling up and his credit card maxed out, he was out of options. His stomach churned at the idea of crushing her enthusiasm. The last 2 years had been a relentless storm since his wife left, and he was determined to shield Lily from the swirling chaos of his life, even if it meant masking his struggles. The day he would have to break the news crept closer, each tick of the clock amplifying the knot in his chest. As he wiped grease from his hands, memories of lost dreams from his marriage threw shadows over his resolve. He faced a moral dilemma: to tell her the truth and risk dimming the light in her eyes, or to continue lying, weaving a facade that was starting to unravel. Guilt gnawed at him. How could he face her? She still laughed with innocence, imagining the magical cake that didn't exist in their world of financial strife. "Dad, can we have cake? The best cake!" she chirped, smiling ear to ear when she walked into the barrage. Jack's heart twisted painfully. Each word reminded him of his inadequacies, echoing thoughts of how he could never give her that grand celebration she craved. The laughter faded slowly as he opened his mouth, choking on the words he desperately wished to avoid. "We can't, Lily." And just like that, the sparkle in her eyes dimmed, leaving a hollow ache resonating in the pit of his stomach. As evening fell, he worked in solitude, the Ford in front of him partially disassembled, like his life. Focused on the tires, he struggled to ignore the gnawing guilt. What kind of father couldn't afford a simple cake? The weight on his shoulders felt insurmountable. It felt as though all his failed dreams were clinging to his back, whispering that he was powerless to change the course of their lives. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. In that moment, Mr. Thompson, the local bakery owner, appeared as if out of nowhere. There was an unusual warmth in his eyes, and they locked onto Jack. "I heard about the cake," he said, softly but firmly. Jack's heart raced. How had he found out? The kindness in Mr. Thompson's voice cut through Jack's fears, offering a glimmer of hope. "Let me help you," he offered, the possibility of joy flickering back to life in Jack's chest. Yet uncertainty gnawed at him. What would that mean? Could he really allow another person to step in? The vulnerability felt overwhelming. The world seemed to tilt again, throwing him off balance. Could he step outside his comfort zone? As Mr. Thompson extended his hand, Jack hesitated, battling the echo of self-doubt. Failure wasn't an option, yet the thought of trying scared him more than anything. Jack looked inside himself, grappling with years of insecurities. Would he rise to embrace this chance, or retreat back to the silence of his garage? Everything was teetering on the edge, waiting for him to choose whether to break free from the chains of his past or sink back into despair. Jack's pulse quickened as he looked into Mr. Thompson's eyes, feeling the weight of expectation hanging in the air like a thick fog. He fought the urge to pull back, retreating into his protective shell. Failure loomed as a specter, reminding him of past mistakes. Yet, buried beneath his layers of apprehension was a flicker of hope, a spark ignited by the genuine compassion he saw in the bakery owner. "Why would you want to help me?" Jack asked, his voice shaky. "I can't repay you for a cake." The words spilled out before he could catch them, exposing his fear of dependency and vulnerability. Mr. Thompson smiled, an unreserved grin that hinted at a deeper understanding. "Sometimes we don't need repayment. Sometimes we just need to lift each other up." The words resonated within Jack, striking a chord buried under mounds of pride. The tension in Jack's chest began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of cautious curiosity. Could this be a chance for him to rethink how he approached his limitations? Perhaps, by accepting help, he could embrace a broader journey of rebuilding, not just Lily's birthday dreams, but his own sense of self-worth. He extended his hand to shake Mr. Thompson's, a bridge forming in that moment. The bakery owner's grip was firm, invigorating, a reassurance Jack hadn't realized he desperately needed. They locked eyes, and in that fleeting exchange, Jack felt a promise that he could seek support without becoming less of a man. Over the following days, Jack worked alongside Mr. Thompson at the bakery after school. It wasn't just about baking the cake, though that was undeniably magical. He found himself learning the art of cake decoration, discovering a forgotten joy in crafting sweetness from chaos. Flour dust swirled around him, each puff a reminder of possibilities unrelated to despair. As he mixed batters and whipped creams, conversations flowed. Mr. Thompson shared his own hardships, tales of starting from nothing after his own marriage fell apart. Jack's respect for the man deepened as he recognized that behind every successful face often lay similar struggles, vulnerability, failure, and the need to mend broken pieces. "Why did you choose to help me?" Jack asked one afternoon, curiosity flooding his mind. Mr. Thompson looked thoughtful. "When I saw a parent's love waver under pressure, I remembered my own daughter's smile. It's the little moments that matter. And trust me, you're a better father than you realize." Jack felt a warmth spread through him. Those words felt like an antidote to his long-held guilt. With every interaction, Jack started to carve out space for his own feelings. The shame he carried began to dissipate as he focused instead on resilience. Each patience-demanding task felt like a lesson not just in baking, but in recharging his own spirit. He learned patience, precision, and above all, the strength to ask for help. The day the cake was unveiled marked a turning point. Vibrant layers of colors stood beneath a cascade of sparkles, each slice a celebration of hope, hard work, and the unexpected alliances formed in moments of desperation. When Lily saw it, her eyes widened with delight, illuminating any darkness that had previously shrouded Jack's heart. But just as the festivities began, a phone call shattered the joy. A reminder of overdue bills echoed in his mind, a reality he couldn't ignore. The world around him felt as if it was teetering again, the euphoria of success undercut by the starkness of his responsibilities. Jack's heart sank, realizing that while he had tasted sweetness, there were still bitter realities awaiting him. How would he balance this newfound hope with the relentless pressure of his responsibilities? As he looked around at blooming joy, Jack knew the real test was just beginning. The phone buzzed again, this time with a message he had been dreading, a request for an urgent payment. How would he turn this moment into something more, something sustainable? The true challenge loomed before him, demanding courage once more. Would he rise or fall back into despair? Jack stared at the glowing screen of his phone, each unread notification a tiny weight pressing down on his chest. The message blared with cold urgency, sending panic coursing through him. Reality, with its merciless grip, invaded the fairy tale moment he had just crafted. The phone buzzed again, each vibration a haunting reminder of a life that felt out of control. "Get a grip," he murmured to himself, clenching his fists until his knuckles turned white. He had just experienced a taste of joy in the cake's creation, the light in Lily's eyes, and the warmth of human connection. Now he was faced with the specter of that undeniable responsibility: finances. Jack's thoughts spiraled: bills, overdue payments, and opportunities lost. How could he have enjoyed that moment while knowing this darkness awaited? It wasn't fair. His mind rifled through all his options, but they all ended in the same dead end: no money, no hope of resolution. In the following days, Jack continued to work at the bakery. He had dedicated himself to this unexpected venture with Mr. Thompson. While flour dust motes danced in the sunlight, Jack knelt at the counter, mixing batter, yet his mind replayed scenarios of financial despair. The bakery had become a sanctuary, but the bills loomed like monsters in the shadows, threatening to engulf him. "Why don't you try selling some of your own creations?" Mr. Thompson suggested one afternoon, breaking Jack from his reverie. "You've got a gift, Jack. Your cakes could stand on their own." It struck him then. The bursts of creativity and confidence had been swallowed by his sense of duty. "But who would buy them?" Jack questioned, doubt creeping back in. "Anyone who's looking for a taste of joy," Mr. Thompson replied firmly. "And there are always people looking to celebrate. Birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. You don't know what people will want until you put it out there." The concept twisted in Jack's stomach, a mixture of excitement and fear. Could he really step out from Mr. Thompson's shadow and be recognized for his own talents? Would those skills translate into more than just escape routes from his worries? The thought was brimming with potential, yet terrifying. For the next week, Jack poured himself into crafting unique cake designs. Using social media, Mr. Thompson helped him advertise on the bakery's page, weaving in poignant stories and eye-catching photographs. Jack focused on creating not just cakes, but narratives, each swirl of icing holding pieces of his journey, vulnerability, and growth. His heart raced with newfound excitement, a spark igniting amidst his doubts. Then he received a message that sent his pulse racing: an invitation for a local market, one overflowing with opportunities for budding entrepreneurs. He hesitated. The overwhelming uncertainty clutched at him. "Come on, just do it. There's no harm in trying," Mr. Thompson encouraged, nudging him gently toward the edge of his comfort zone. "How will I make enough? What if people don't like them?" Jack felt the familiar grip of doubt trying to chain him down. "Not everyone will, but you can't know until you try." Every success story starts with a leap of faith. Jack stood on the cusp of something new, as exhilarating as it was terrifying. The strength he felt in what he had accomplished with Mr. Thompson had opened doors he never thought would exist. Maybe the challenge ahead was less about selling cakes and more about reclaiming control over his life. Over the next few days, he crafted his first batch of cakes to showcase at the market, pouring his love and hard work into every recipe. As the event approached, Jack found his anxiety being replaced by a flicker of ambition. He envisioned standing behind a table laden with his creations, eager faces of customers, friendships blossoming with every bite. But beneath that excitement rested an undercurrent of fear. What if it failed? The market day arrived, and Jack stood there, heart pounding, a mix of anticipation and dread. It was time to confront the next challenge, the essence of his growth. Was he truly ready to step out on his own? As people gathered around, he sensed the hunger in the air, not just for cake, but for connection, recognition, and perhaps a shared story. When he laid his first cake down, the question hung in the air: would it win hearts or fall flat? Jack inhaled deeply, steadied himself, and prepared for whatever outcome awaited. The moment of truth was here, and he was ready to confront it. The bustling market buzzed around Jack, the atmosphere a collage of voices and vibrant energy.
Stalls decorated with colorful banners flanked his modest table, brimming with cakes, each adorned with intricate designs that manifested his emotional journey. The sunlight danced off the frosting, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. Yet within Jack, a storm brewed, a battle between fervent hope and an all-consuming anxiety. As he adjusted the placard displaying the prices, his mind wrestled with questions spiraling out of control. Would anyone stop by? Would his efforts be acknowledged? Each person passing seemed to pass judgment, every fleeting glance igniting the embers of dread. The earlier excitement of envisioning smiling faces became intermingled with the looming fear of rejection. His chest tightened, and for a moment he considered retreating. "Stay present," he whispered to himself, struggling to ground his thoughts. This was no longer about fulfilling a dream. It was about transforming aspirations into tangible pieces of reality. His narrative was unfolding, and he needed to embrace that. Every layer of uncertainty and doubt was part of the richness of life he had long yearned for. A family approached first, the small girl's eyes lighting up upon seeing the cakes. The mother smiled at Jack, curiosity evident in her demeanor. But as they inched closer, Jack felt his heart racing. Would they appreciate the care he infused into each creation, or would it be just another layer of disappointment? "Wow, these look amazing! Did you make these yourself?" the mother asked, her tone warm and inviting. Jack nodded, dampening the tremor in his voice. "Yes, each one. I wanted to share stories through the flavors and designs. It means a lot to me." She inspected the cakes, her daughter reaching out for a slice with unrestrained enthusiasm. For the first time that day, Jack caught a glimpse of possibility. Maybe he wasn't just selling cakes, he was inviting others to partake in his journey. As he spoke with the family, he felt the weight of his anxiety lifting, replaced by a sense of purpose. Each compliment and smile unraveled a thread of self-doubt. With every slice sold, he built a narrative of hope and resilience. Hours passed, and while Jack didn't sell out, he garnered connections. People were responding, sharing personal stories tied to cakes and celebrations, breathing life into his once isolated venture. He realized it wasn't merely about profit, it was about recognition. With each conversation, he was redefining his worth through the prism of heartfelt interactions. Then, as the afternoon sun began to wane, an unexpected figure approached. Dressed sharply and exuding a palpable confidence, the man paused at Jack's stall, studying the cupcakes and the slices he had showcased. Jack's heart quickened. "Beautiful work," the man commented, nodding towards the beautiful display. "You've put a lot of heart into this. Mind if I ask where you learned to create such things?" Jack swallowed hard, uncertain how to respond. "I learned through trial and error, leaning into what I love." "Passion goes a long way," the man drawled, interest sharpening in his brown eyes. "Have you ever thought about expanding, selling your cakes beyond this market?" Jack felt the world spin slightly. The man's enthusiasm was both flattering and terrifying. I've thought about it, but I don't know if I'm ready. There are challenges, like finances." The man's gaze intensified. "Everyone starts somewhere. If you genuinely believe in your skill, you owe it to yourself to explore. You won't know until you try." With those words, a flicker of ambition surged within Jack. The very idea of expansion had seemed beyond his grasp, unreachable in its enormity. But here was someone who believed, someone with experience, perhaps even a connection that could propel him. "Tell me more," Jack replied, suddenly filled with curiosity and hope. As the conversation deepened, Jack realized this was more than just a chance encounter. It was potentially the intersection of dreams and possibility. The weight of his uncertain future began to morph into exhilarating prospects. Meanwhile, echoes of what-ifs nestled in his mind, challenging him to confront the deepest layers of his fears. How far was he willing to go to realize his potential? The conversation wrapped up, leaving Jack leaning instinctively towards action. He could no longer stay stagnant. Something profound had ignited within him. With a newfound resolve, Jack faced the rest of the market day,
aware of the challenges ahead, but ready to embrace them. He had begun to realize that the moment he stepped out of fear was the moment he truly began to embody his potential. But as evening closed in, a gnawing uncertainty crept back. What was he truly willing to sacrifice? And would the risk pay off? The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving Jack in shadow. Tomorrow would demand more than just determination. It would demand the courage to challenge not only his fears, but also everything he thought he knew about himself. What awaited him on this path, and how would he confront it? Jack woke the next morning to a tension that hung in the air like an impending storm. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing. The conversation from yesterday echoed in his mind, a realization sparking amidst the confusion. He couldn't ignore the man's words. They felt like a challenge, a dare to step beyond his self-imposed boundaries. As he rose, Jack made his way to the kitchen, preparing coffee with mechanical precision. The familiar aroma provided a fleeting moment of comfort, yet it couldn't mask the gnawing apprehension over the future he was contemplating. A flurry of self-doubt tangled with flashes of excitement as the sunlight slanted through the window, illuminating the chaotic mess of his thoughts. What was expansion for him? Was it merely selling cakes in different markets, or was he envisioning a bakery, a legitimate venture, drawing from the heart of his creations? The mere thought sent a pulse of terror through him. He didn't have experience running a business. What if he failed? What if he lost everything? Gripping his mug tightly, Jack wrestled with those fears. At that moment, he considered his daughter, Emily. All those late-night talks about dreams and pursuing passions resonated in his heart. Would he be teaching her resilience, or would he be reinforcing the notion that staying small was sufficient? Each second weighed heavily, forcing him to confront his decisions. After a few moments of contemplation, he put the cup down and pulled out a notepad. He needed to lay out his thoughts, make them tangible. He wrote down possibilities, local bakeries, cafes, potential partnerships. Each word was steeped in trepidation, yet infused with a flicker of hope. Later that day, as he prepared for the market, Jack felt the weight of his ambition morphing into a tangible energy. He reached for his phone, screen glowing brightly with potential. He hesitated for a moment, wrestling with the idea of reaching out to that man from yesterday. What would he say? That he was interested in pursuing a more extensive venture? That he needed advice? He drew a shaky breath, but ultimately pressed the call button. The ringing felt like a countdown, a prelude to something that could secure his courage or shatter it. When the other line clicked, he steadied his voice, expressing his interest in learning more about expanding his business. Conversations flowed more easily than he anticipated, each exchange shifting his confidence upwards. Encouraged by this small act of bravery, Jack pushed himself outside a narrow space where anxiety thrived. At the market, vibrant voices submerged him, but he approached customers with a renewed sense of purpose. When someone remarked on the intricacy of his cakes, Jack replied with newfound enthusiasm, sharing stories that influenced each flavor and design. As the day unfolded, Jack felt the stitching of a community forming around him. People were sharing their experiences, and his modest stall became a platform for connection. He established meaningful exchanges that felt less about profit and more about growth. Each interaction fortified his resolve to extend beyond the confines he had circled himself in. Then it struck him. The notion of not only cakes, but also the stories behind them was blossoming within him. Louder, carving a deeper path toward his vision. Despite the positive momentum he had begun to cultivate, fears still loomed like specters. The question was no longer just about having the courage to expand, but about owning that vision without the crippling weight of doubt. Did he truly possess the passion and commitment necessary to transform dreams into reality? A call from Emily brought warmth to his heart, but also a stark reminder of stakes involved. "Daddy, can I have a cake for my birthday?" she asked, her excitement uncontainable. Jack smiled and felt the weight of responsibility deepen.
It was no longer just about him. His ambitions would shape her future, too. "Of course, sweetie. What kind do you want?" His heart swelled, but the underlying anxiety also set in. Could he make her dream cake happen? Determined to act, Jack plunged into the night, drawing up plans in his mind, mapping out steps he could take. Each stroke of possibility ignited anticipation, but shadows of doubt still crept in. Facing his fears was one thing, but the commitment required to plant roots in this new venture felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, teetering between success and potential failure. As he prepared for bed, his mind raced through everything he needed to learn. Tomorrow was not just another market day. It was the start of something new. He was ready to explore uncharted territories, a decision made not just for himself, but for Emily, too. But as Jack's head hit the pillow, one question loomed larger than all the rest. Was he truly prepared for the sacrifices that would accompany his dreams? Would he be able to face the harsh reality of entrepreneurship head-on? Tomorrow would answer that question, but the mere thought of it filled him with a thrilling blend of apprehension and excitement. The dawn crept into Jack's room, nudging him awake with a promise veiled in tentative light. The weight of the previous day pressed heavily on his chest. As he swung his legs over the bed, he felt an urgency to act. Today would be the day he began taking tangible steps toward his vision, but what route would lead him there? The path of transformation was not well worn. It was littered with potential consequences he could hardly contemplate. Taking a moment in the shower, he allowed the warm water to wash over him, momentarily soothing his frayed nerves. In those brief minutes of solitude, he confronted the swirling storm of doubt that roared in his mind. Failure lurked in every corner he turned. But what if? What if he dared to dream bigger, not just for himself, but for Emily? Emboldened, Jack formulated a plan. He reached for his notepad again. This time, instead of possibilities, he started sketching out specifics. A list of potential locations to sell more cakes, possible investment routes, and even names for his future bakery. The act of writing liberated him. Ideas flowed more freely, each one building off the last,
reinforcing his growing belief that he could construct something tangible from his aspirations. "Focus, Jack," he muttered to himself as he scribbled down a timeline. He envisioned milestones, a month for research, preparations, and perhaps a meeting with that man who had ignited something in him. What was he selling, if not his vision? A bakery filled with not just cake, but stories and heart. He finished getting ready, spinning resolve into his movements, and headed to the farmer's market, where his stall awaited. Each step was deliberate, as he mentally rehearsed ways to expand his reach. Engaging with customers was one thing, but what about cultivating relationships that could lead to partnerships? The thought both excited and terrified him. As he reached his stall, the vibrant colors of fresh fruits and vegetables mixed with voices resonated in the air, and he took a deep breath. He watched as other vendors interacted effortlessly with patrons, sharing banter and smiles. Jack felt a flicker of longing, but realized he wasn't just a spectator. He was part of this vibrant tapestry, too. The first few hours passed with steady sales, but Jack experienced a lingering emptiness that gnawed at the edges of his victory. What was the point of this moment if he remained stuck? The stories he had shared with grandmotherly customers, while fulfilling, felt like a mere scratching of the surface when juxtaposed against the dreams he held. Was this truly all he wanted, or was there more he could reach for? Around midday, he spotted a familiar figure in the crowd, the man who had spoken with him. Jack's heart raced, and without thinking, he stepped off his stall, moving toward him. "Hey, I was hoping to speak with you more about expanding my business," he said, short of breath. The man turned, eyes lighting up with interest. "Well, let me see what you have," the man replied, gesturing for them to step aside. Jack's pulse quickened. The conversation was drifting into territories he had only tentatively explored in his mind.
They discussed ideas, Jack listening intently as the man offered insights, his enthusiasm infectious. "Passion is where it starts, but do you have a business plan?" the man asked, his expression shifting, testing Jack's resolve. "This is a game changer. You'll need to have it all laid out, the costs, the logistics." The words shot through Jack like ice water. Until now, he had been dreaming in a haze of flour and sugar. But this was real. There would be numbers, real contracts, and commitments to uphold. A recurring anxiety gripped him momentarily, tightening around his throat. He pushed it down, reminding himself he was fighting for Emily's vision too. "I can draft one," Jack managed, and with each phrase exchanged, his resolve crystallized further. But as the conversation drew to a close, that familiar sense of fear washed over him again. What if he couldn't do it? What if this was simply pie-in-the-sky nonsense? The man smiled, a knowing glint in
his eyes before departing, leaving Jack standing amid the warmth and chaos of the market, feeling both liberated and overwhelmed. He had taken a step forward, but now the question loomed larger than before. Would he dare to leap without knowing where he'd land? Fueled by urgency, he returned to his stall, grappling with the dawning realization that entrepreneurship was not just about baking. It demanded a different sort of courage, one that would test him at every turn. Rising to the occasion meant more than confronting exterior challenges. It meant wrestling with the very essence of who he was becoming. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in strokes of orange and pink, he gazed at the faces surrounding him, considering how they had connected with him, his cakes, and each other. Perhaps this was just the beginning. Tomorrow he would take concrete steps, but one question lingered, a profound dilemma that threatened to capsize his budding ambitions. Was he willing to embrace the commitment it would take to turn that passion into a business? His pulse raced as the sun slipped below the horizon. The next chapter of his journey beckoned, laden with promise and peril. Morning found Jack waking up with a sharper clarity, the echoes of yesterday's discussion still fresh in his mind. He blinked against the rays of sunlight streaming through his window, each beam calling him to action. The man's words hovered around him like a challenge. "Do you have a business plan?" He rolled out of bed with intention, a flicker of determination igniting within him. The plan was not merely an essential step, it had become his lifeline. He grabbed his notebook, flicking through pages filled with doodles and half-formed ideas. He had imagined a bakery that would transcend being just a space to buy sweets. It was to be a gathering place, a haven filled with nostalgia and warmth. Jack realized he had to pivot his focus. The conversations he had engaged in at the market were not merely social exchanges. They were the first threads in the fabric of something bigger. That connection was vital to his growth. He jotted down the names of people he had spoken to, the stories he had shared, and the little moments that had sparked joy. To turn this into a bakery meant incorporating those very experiences into his business plan. By the time he finished a breakfast hastily prepared with yesterday's leftovers, his mind churned with ideas, questions pulsating beneath his excitement. What ingredients would matter most in creating his vision? Could he transform the sweetness of sugar into a more profound connection with his customers? The bakery would be about experiences as much as it would be about confections. With renewed vigor, he transitioned from the protective cocoon of his thoughts into action. The first task loomed before him, crafting a proper business plan. But where to start? He began to outline chapters in his mind: market analysis, financial projections, and furnishings. That would set the mood of the bakery. His internal voice nudged him to think practically. Could he really afford all this? He paused and took a deep breath. Fears crept back in, whispering insidiously at the edges of his resolve. What if he failed? Would he once again disappoint himself and Emily? But beneath that fear was also a tether of hope. He envisioned tiny fingers dusted with flour, Emily laughing as they baked together. Those images stoked his determination. To arm himself with knowledge, he visited the local library. Finding a seat by the window, he researched various business plans, absorbing information like a sponge. The thrill of learning ignited a fire within him. Each statistic and strategy revealed uncharted territory, not just for his bakery, but for the man he was becoming. He began sketching out a rough timeline, action items with deadlines, realistic goals he could achieve. Returning home, Jack felt a sense of unity between his ambition and the work that lay ahead. The plan took shape as he filled his notebook with facts and figures, but also with personal anecdotes. Each entry reaffirmed the conviction within him. A business wouldn't just be about balancing expenses, it was an extension of his identity and those he loved. As night crept in, Jack took a moment to reflect on his day's progress. Had he made the leap yet? Not quite, but it was only a matter of time. Every effort counted. Each note had significance, carrying him closer to the vision he had for himself and Emily. But as he set his notebook aside, the evening shadows fell longer, mirroring the weight of uncertainty still brewing in his gut. The commitment to make this work was present, but a new question emerged, lurking in the darkness. Would he know when he really had enough knowledge to execute this plan, or would hesitation keep him in a perpetual loop of wishful thinking? Feeling the tension settle over him like a heavy blanket, he reminded himself of the man who had pushed him forward. Perhaps taking that leap required more than just a business plan. It necessitated defining the courage to step into the unknown. There was still one more step to take: reaching out to others, tapping into resources or mentors who could help him bridge the gap between passion and action. The thought sent chills down his spine, and he knew deep down that the path ahead was not just about finding answers, but also about having the audacity to seek them. With conviction thrumming beneath his skin, he decided to make the call. Tomorrow would be different. The dawn of another day faithfully awaited, and Jack understood that the journey of 1,000 miles began not from a grand leap, but from a single, decisive stride into the unknown. Would he be ready to take that step that could potentially change everything? As dawn broke, Jack rose with the sun, the light invigorating his spirit like a fresh batch of dough ready to rise. Today was different. Clarity pulsated through him, galvanizing his resolve. He had promised himself that hesitation would not tether him today. He had a call to make, a step to take. After a quick breakfast, he settled at his kitchen table and opened his notebook. The names he had written the day before leapt out at him, each representing a connection waiting to be forged into something more substantial. His finger traced down the list until it landed on Maria, a local baker whose reputation in the community garnered respect and admiration. His heart raced as he picked up his phone, anxiety coiling in his gut. What if she didn't want to help? What if she dismissed his inquiry as silly or irrelevant? Yet, for every shadow of doubt, a flicker of determination flickered to life. He dialed her number, tapping his fingers against the table, the urgency of his quest urging him to push through his fears. Hello? Her voice was warm and inviting, an open door he hadn't anticipated. Maria, it's Jack. I'm starting a bakery and was hoping to get some advice from you. He stammered, the words spilling out before he could second-guess himself. There was a pause on the other end, and he braced himself for dismissal, but instead she chuckled softly. Starting a bakery, huh? Well, you've got guts, Jack. What do you need? A rush of relief filled him, and confidence flooded in. They spoke for what felt like an eternity, exchanging thoughts about logistics, customer engagement, and even the emotional weight of pursuing one's dreams. Maria shared her triumphs and regrets alike, opening up the landscape of possibility in ways Jack had never envisioned. By the end of their conversation, he realized that mentorship wasn't just about business strategies. It was about gaining the courage to sustain one's passion. Empowered by her encouragement, Jack set about implementing the insights she'd shared. He spent the afternoon sketching a vision board, a tactile representation of goals, dreams, and actionable steps.
His artistic streak emerged as he cut out pictures from magazines, bustling bakeries, smiling families, and the warmth of community. Each cut and paste fueled his excitement, like the anticipation of a well-loved recipe. But as the day ebbed away, another fear crept in, one that draped itself over his progress. How would he handle it if he failed? Images of disappointment taunted him, Emily's hopeful face surrendering to sadness. He swung between confidence and crippling self-doubt, his thoughts spiraling from progress to paralysis. In that heart-racing moment, it struck him. He needed a deeper commitment. If this was to succeed, he must be willing to fail publicly and rise anew, like dough left to rise even when it seems flat. This bakery dream was less about the pastries and more about the lessons learned along the way, the grit and which he would pass down to Emily. He took a deep breath, confronting the turbulent emotions.
Was an opportunity to learn, and with that understanding, he resolved to embrace not just his ambitions, but the journey of stumbling, learning, and shoring up resilience. As Jack tucked his vision board away, he considered what resources he could further explore. He needed to attend local business workshops or join cooking classes, anything to expand his repertoire of skills and knowledge. With that thought simmering in his mind, he sat down to research nearby workshops. But before he could dive further into planning, he received a text from Maria that made his heart race again. "Would you be interested in showing your concept to some local investors? I think it could really spark their interest." A knot formed in Jack's stomach. This was it, the moment where he could step out fully from behind the shadows of his doubts. Would he have enough preparation to showcase his vision? Could he bear the weight of potential judgment? As dusk loomed over him, Jack understood that this challenge was not just about logistics. This was the defining moment of his journey. Taking the plunge with an idea could be incredibly rewarding, but the fear of judgment was that slippery slope he had to conquer first. As he turned his vision board over, he cut another piece of paper, but this time it was for what he would pour into a pitch, a representation of his passion and dreams. Would he have the courage to step into the spotlight and embrace this opportunity? The time had come to face the investors, and the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on his shoulders. It was no longer a question of whether he was ready. It was about uncovering the person he needed to become in order to succeed. Jack sat at his kitchen table, the scraps of his vision board scattered around him like breadcrumbs leading into a dark forest of uncertainty. The prospect of showcasing his concept to local investors tied his stomach in knots. With each countdown to the meeting, self-doubt steadily crept in, erasing the excitement he had earlier felt. Who would pay attention to a father with a dream, armed only with a handful of scraps and an idea? The images of Emily's face flickered through his mind, her raw belief in him amplifying his anxiety. He closed his eyes to steady himself. What did he want to convey? What differentiated his bakery from the others? Jack grabbed a piece of scrap paper and scribbled. He began wrangling those shadows of doubt into a coherent list. Unique flavors, heartwarming stories, a community focus, and of course, the personal touch that came with knowing the struggles of single parenthood. This wasn't just about selling pastries. It was about resilience packaged in baked goods, a way for him to pour all his fears and hopes into something tangible. But Jack knew what awaited him would not be an easy bake-off. The weight of potential judgment from investors loomed large. Did his concepts hold enough merit? Were they nourishing enough to sustain a vision? Each question felt heavier than the last, and he realized that he couldn't shoulder this burden alone. Processing through a slew of emotions, he dialed Maria once more. "I'm having second thoughts. What if the investors don't take me seriously?" On the other end, her voice was firm yet warm. "Jack, every great journey begins with uncertainty. You have something unique to offer, but you first must believe in it yourself. If you doubt your worth, how will you expect others to see it?" Her words rolled around in his head like fresh dough, kneading his fears. Jack needed to shape these feelings into a catalyst for action. The one piece he had overlooked until now suddenly flooded his thoughts. Authenticity. He had to present his concept not just as a business, but a slice of his life, something that resonated deeply and personally. With renewed energy, Jack gathered the scattered remnants of his vision board. This time, he added more personal elements: Emily's drawings, photos of them baking together, snippets of laughter frozen in time. Each item ushered in a form of clarity. He would dive deep into his narrative and showcase his journey alongside the bakery. As he began drafting his pitch, a story interwoven with his dreams, love for baking, and the indomitable spirit of a father, the ideas flowed freely. He practiced speaking aloud, feeling the words take on weight and meaning. There was something empowering about sharing not just his business plan, but a part of himself. The day before the meeting loomed closer, and Jack decided to visit the local park where he and Emily often played. As the wind chased leaves across the ground, he found solace in the neighborhood bustling with energy. Watching other parents engage with their children, he felt a rush of recognition. He was not alone, battling uncertainties in silence. That evening, when Emily returned from school, Jack knelt beside her and opened up a conversation about dreams. "You know, sometimes adults have to work hard and brave their fears just like kids do, right?" Her wide-eyed gaze locked onto him, unwavering. "Are you scared, Daddy?" she asked, her innocence piercing through his facade. "A little," he confessed, "but there's something special about being scared. It means we're about to do something important." Her smile was like a light, reinforcing his resolve. "You can do it, Daddy. I believe in you." As they baked cookie dough together, the feeling of connection and love expanded his heart, filling the void left by self-doubt. With every stir of the spoon, he felt lighter. Wasn't that the heart of his bakery? To create a space that echoed love and warmth? The morning sun kissed the horizon, and Jack's nerves transformed into a steely edge. It was time. As he prepared for the meeting with a fresh perspective, one truth rattled through him. Embracing vulnerability would be the strongest recipe for success. But just as he felt, "Jack, can you meet me at the cafe first? We need to discuss something important before the pitch." Jack's heart raced. What could that mean? The ground beneath him felt unsteady, as if he was balancing on a tightrope while a storm brewed ahead. Jack arrived at the cafe, anticipation gripping him as he spotted Maria seated at a corner table. The familiar warmth of her smile brought immediate comfort, but concern flickered in her eyes. "Jack, I wanted to talk to you about something very important before you pitch your concept," she began, her tone serious but kind. As Jack settled into the chair across from her, he felt a rush of gratitude for the support she had offered throughout this journey. "What's on your mind?" he asked, trying to mask the churning anxiety within him. "Your pitch is fantastic, but remember, this isn't just about the bakery, it's about your story. Investors want to see that you not only understand the business side, but that you are also passionate and driven by your purpose. Make it personal. Share your journey as a single dad and the struggles you faced. That's what will resonate with them," she encouraged. Jack took a deep breath, reflecting on her words. It was true. He had been so focused on presenting a polished business model that he almost forgot the essence behind it. His love for Lily, his determination to create a life for them both that was filled with joy and resilience. The conversation stirred something deep within him. "You're right, I can't just present numbers and charts. I need to connect on a personal level." He felt an electric spark of clarity illuminating his path forward. Maria smiled, pleased with his realization. "Exactly. It's your authenticity that will set you apart. You're building a community around your bakery. Let them feel your passion." After their chat, Jack left the cafe with purposeful steps. The storm of uncertainty within him calmed, replaced by a resolve that surged like fresh dough rising. Throughout the day, he meticulously prepared his pitch, weaving in the heartfelt elements of his story.
He would share the dreams of a little girl and a father forging a path through a tumultuous sea of challenges. As he practiced in front of the mirror that night, Jack discovered a burgeoning confidence each time he voiced his experiences. The words flowed more easily, as if anchored by the authenticity that Maria had reignited within him. He envisioned the investors nodding along as he spoke, captivated by the narrative he was crafting, a story of love, perseverance, and the magic of baking. The day of the pitch dawned, sunlight spilling into his home like a promise fulfilled. The nerves tingled in his stomach, but for the first time they felt like anticipation rather than fear. He slipped into his best shirt, straightening the collar with a sense of duty, not just to himself, but to Emily and the vision that lay ahead.
As he arrived at the investors' meeting, the room buzzed with excitement. Other entrepreneurs mingled, sharing their stories and ideas, and for a moment Jack felt the familiar grip of self-doubt, urging him to retreat. But he knew this was no longer just about a bakery. It was about anchoring a new life built on strength and determination. When his turn came, he stepped forward, heart pounding. But it wasn't fear that gripped him. It was a zeal to share. As he launched into his pitch, weaving in Lily's dreams and his journey, he saw heads leaning in, investors connecting with the heart of his narrative. He spoke of laughter shared through frosting and flour, of hardship transforming into hope. Each word elicited warmth and engagement. This was real, palpable. By the end of his presentation, he had transformed the disjointed fragments of his fears into a tapestry of aspiration. Applause erupted as he finished, a sweet release flooding him. The investors met his gaze with nodding approval, and for the first time, Jack felt acknowledged, not just as a baker, but as a man grounded in his truth. As questions followed, they delved into specifics, but the same thread remained. His story resonated, enriching every aspect of his proposal. It was clear to Jack that he was heard, seen, and valued. Days passed as Jack awaited the investor's decision, each moment brimming with anticipation. The call he had dreaded became the one he longed for. When it finally came, he stood at the kitchen counter, hands trembling, and pressed the phone to his ear. "Jack, we loved your pitch. We believe in the vision you hold, both for the bakery and for your daughter. We'd like to offer you investment support to get started," the voice on the other end said, unleashing a tidal wave of joy through him. He hung up, the weight lifting off his shoulders like a balloon set free. Jack stood still for a moment, a smile spreading across his face. He realized this was not just funding. This was an affirmation of his journey, a recognition of all he had overcome. The next weeks unfolded like pages from a cherished book. Building the bakery took shape with every brick and layer of frosting. Jack felt fulfillment being wrapped in a love that had weathered storms and freaked out doubts. One sunny afternoon, as he prepared a cake adorned with vibrant sprinkles for a local event, he paused. His journey transformed by personal growth. He had conquered self-doubt and embraced vulnerability, turning them into strengths. He would never forget where he started. The end of his story remained unwritten, the possibilities endless. As Jack felt the warmth of Emily's laughter fill their home, he knew with solid confidence that he was not just the father she deserved. He was a man who achieved his dreams and demonstrated resilience. He was not alone. He had conquered his past and built a future brimming with hope. Now, more than ever, he understood the importance of stepping into the light and pursuing dreams. The journey was only beginning, and he was ready to embrace it fully. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could inspire your own journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, allowing stories like Jack's to reach others who need it. Comment your reactions and theories about Jack's transformation. What inspired you the most? Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Help others find their courage.